Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshwari Mata ki jai. Bole Baba ki jai. We'll go on with chapter 32 from the Devi Bhagavatam, retold by Ramesh, Menon. Under sun, moon, and stars, Sutta recounts his blessed Devi Bhagavatam in the Naimisavana. He went on to say, Vyasa said to King Janamejaya, the Devas and Rishis went back to Devaloka, but they were at poor peace with themselves. The sages knew that they had hardly deserved to be called Munis anymore. Noble Vritra had trusted them, and they had betrayed him cold-bloodedly to his death. Even Vishnu felt pangs of conscience in Vaikuntha. The rishis said amongst themselves, if Vishnu himself could be party to this treachery, which man will hesitate to sin any more? Vishvakarman went to the place where his son lay dead, his chest torn open by Indra's weapon of foam. He took Vritra's peaceful face onto his lap and wept and wept and wept. And then, standing waist deep in the sea, he performed the last rites for Vritra and offered Tarpanam to his spirit. A scarlet sun sank into the waves that murmured on and on about the sin that had been committed on that shore and about Indra's guilt. Standing there, Vishvakarman offered a prayer for his dead child. Then in anguish he cursed Indra that he would pay in full for his treachery, that he would suffer even as he, Vishvakarman, was suffering now. Then Vishvakarman climbed Meru and sat upon the golden mountain in a stern tapasya, said the illustrious Vyasa. King Janamejaya said, did Indra suffer in any way for what he had done? As soon as he killed Vritrasura, Indra felt a great weakness in all his limbs, as if his very prana leaked out of his body. Even his devas said that their king had done a dastardly thing, killing Vritra, who had taken Indra into his confidence and into his heart as his closest friend. Moreover, Vritra was a Brahmana, and Indra was guilty of Brahmahatya twice over now. He was Brahmagataka, a Brahmana slayer. Everywhere Indra's treachery was the talk, among the Devas and the Munis, among Gandharvas, Ganaras, and Apsaras. The Deva king was in disgrace. He suffered torments of shame, for such is the way of karma. Yayati was cast down from heaven for his sin and spent 18 years as a crab. Why, Vishnu himself had to be born in mortal wombs, human and bestial, over and over again to pay for the sin of beheading the Rishi's Brigu's wife. Even precious Rama suffered by that curse. Indra also had been cursed by a Brahmana. Terror seized Indra, and he had no peace. His body lost its luster, so he was hardly a deva anymore in appearance. He was wan and listless. Often tears sprang into his eyes for no reason. Screaming nightmares tore through his sleep, and by day he sat anxiously on his throne, his 1,000 eyes red-rimmed. Once, hearing her husband sigh piteously to himself, Indra's queen, Sachi, came near him and said, my lord, you have killed your worst enemy and resumed power over the 3 worlds. Indra, the Deva army has been scattered. Then why do you, the Danava army has been scattered. Then why do you sigh like this and cry from time to time? Why, at times you seem to swoon on your very throne from some overwhelming grief. Could it be that too late Indra realized he had loved Vritrasura? Could it be that he mourned his enemy? Indra sighed more deeply still and said, there is no pleasure left in my life. My sin clasps me close, choking all the joy from my heart. No Gandharva's song or Apsara's embrace can delight me anymore. Darkness engulfs me, and grief and terror. Guilt stalks my every moment, waking and asleep. My heart seems to have forgotten what happiness is. What use is it living like this, my queen? It is better if I die. For my own devas turn accusing eyes on devas turn accusing eyes on me, and I can almost hear them cry in their hearts, betrayer, murderer. And nothing Sachi did or say could console Indra. He was king in Devaloka. He lived in a palace, unrivaled in all the worlds. All the wealth in heaven and earth was his. The loveliest women were his. But Indra was in torment. He was in hell. And one day, when he could not bear the terror anymore, he fled from Amravati, even like a madman or one possessed by a demon. And he went down to the earth without telling even his queen. Indra arrived at Mantsarava, the sacred lake in the north of the Himalayas. There, on a searing impulse to escape his very life, the Lord of the Devas turned into a water serpent, slid into the hollow stalk of a lotus, and hid there. When Indra was found missing from Devaloka, the other devas, rishis, Gandharvas, Apsaras, and the rest grew anxious. Why? Anxiety swept all creation in a subtle tide. The monsoon brought no rain, and fields, lakes, tanks, and rivers were dry. The world fell into anarchy and disease, and strife broke out among men and more immortals. A century passed, still there was no sign of Indra. In despair, the Devas crowned Nahusha, Lord of the three worlds, and installed him on Indra's throne. Nahusha ruled wisely at first, and order returned to creation, while the wretch Indra lived the life of a water snake in Mantsarava. But with power and success, arrogance inevitably overtook Nahusha. He began to indulge himself excessively. Always he was to be found with the Apsaras and in the Nandana and in his harem. Then one day the king saw Sachi grieving by herself, and he lusted after her. Nahusha sent for some munis and said to them, "You had crowned me queen in Indra's place, yet his queen Indrani does not come to me. Go speak with her and say that the king of the Devas commands her to come to him." The rishis went to Sachi and said objectively, "Nahusha is king of the Devaloka now, and he sends us to say you must go to him in his harem. What shall we do, Devi?" She went desperately to Brihaspati, the Deva guru, and cried, "Brahmana, Guru, I seek refuge." Guru said kindly, "Be at peace, child. I will not let Nahusha lay a hand on you. I give you my protection." But when Nahusha heard this, he was livid. He called the Devas and swore, "Brihaspati hides Sachi in his home. Though he knows I desire her, I will have Brihaspati's head." The rishis and the Devas entreated him, "Lord, king of the kings, forsake this sinful thought." Indra's wife Sachi is perfectly chaste. When Indra still lives, how can Sachi even think of taking another husband? You are king of the Devas and all the three worlds. Now, Nahusha, you are the guardian of Dharma. If you commit such a sin, how will the rest of us remain pure? Besides, all the apsaras of heaven are yours to enjoy. Dharma is with Brihaspati, that he has given the Devi Sachi shelter. Don't let lust blind you to the truth. But Nahusha scoffed at them. "Dare you speak to me of Dharma? Devas, were Where was your precious Dharma when Indra seduced Ahalya, or when Soma took Tara from Brihaspati? No, I will not be satisfied until I have Sachi. She too will be happy when she comes to me. So let her not delay, but come at once. Bring her to me anyhow, with soft words, or bring her to me by force. And he glowered at them so fiercely they were terrified. The Devas and Munis went to Brihaspati and said, Gurudeva, all of us together made Nahusha king of Devaloka. It is natural that he now wants the queen of heaven for himself. Hand her over to us, Guru. We mean to fetch her to Nahusha. Brihaspati cried in rage, the Devi Sachi is a chaste wife who has sought shelter under my roof. I will never abandon her. The Deva said, Nahusha says he will kill you if he doesn't have Sachi. What will you do, Guru? Brihaspati said, Sachi must go to Nahusha and speak sweetly to him. She must tell him that she will become his queen as soon as she knows that Indra is indeed dead. She will ask Nahusha to let her go abroad, seeking any trace of her husband or his death. Nahusha will give her leave, and she must somehow find Indra and bring him back. No one else is as powerful enough to vanquish Nahusha now. Brihaspati explained his plan to Sachi, who willingly agreed to collaborate. Guru and the Devas took Sachi to Nahusha. He rose smiling from his throne. His eyes were alight to see her. He said, today I have truly become the king of the Devaloka, that I see you before me. I am the lord of the Devas, and they worship me. You also worship me now as your lord and husband. Lovely Sachi, be my queen from now on. Sachi flushed. She quivered with shame to hear him. She said, King of the Devas, I have a boon to ask of you. I cannot give myself to you, heart and soul, until I am certain my lord Indra is dead, or guilt and doubt will torment me forever. I beg you, let me satisfy myself that Indra has truly perished. When I am content, I will be your queen. Nahusha considered this for a moment. Then he said, Be it so, but hurry, my love, and come back to me. She gave him a bewitching smile, and in his great vanity, he never doubted that now she loved him and was as eager to be his wife as he was to have her. Sachi hurried back to the Devas and told them of the short lease of time she had gained. But Nahusha would not wait for long before he forced himself upon her. Sachi was desperate, and for her sake the Devas flew to Vaikuntha to Vishnu. They said to Narayan, Lord Nahusha is a king in Amravati, and he desires Indrani for his bed. She said to him that she will be his queen as soon as she learns that Indra is indeed dead. No one knows where Indra is. His sin of Brahmahatya consumes him, and he hides both from us in strange fear. Nahusha is so powerful now that he sits on the throne of the three worlds, that none of us can resist him. Vishnu, Lord, help us. Vishnu said serenely, Let Sachi worship the Devi, who protects all women. As for Indra, he must perform an Ashvamedha yagya to be free of his sin. But where is he, that we may tell him what to do? Indra is a serpent hiding in the stalk of a crimson lotus upon the Manasarava on earth. Go to him now. Tell him that if he performs this Ashvamedha yagya, his sins will be washed away and terror will leave him. Nahusha has enjoyed Indra's throne for too long. He has grown arrogant and careless of Dharma. It is time Indra resumes his power in Amravati. Brihaspati and the Devas found Indra, the water snake, in the lotus stalk. With their help, the anguished Deva king managed to perform Ashvamedha yagya. when a white stallion had flown through heaven, earth, and the netherworlds, and a host of devas with it, daring anyone to arrest its careen, the steed was sanctified by Indra. It is told that Indra's sin of Brahmahatya and all his other sins fell onto the earth, and its mountains, rivers, trees, women, and Bhumi Devi herself shared his savage burden. Indra was light again. His shouts of joy echoed against the white peaks that surrounded the precious lake. Yet fear did not leave him entirely, and he knew the time had not yet arrived when he could cast Nahusha out of the heavens. For that king had been a great tapasvan once, and his store of punya was not yet exhausted. Meanwhile, Sachi prayed fervently to the Devi Bhagavati that Indra may return to her. Brihaspati came to her and told her the Ashvamedha that Indra had performed, but still there was no sign of her lord. In despair, Sachi put on a hermit's garb, deerskin and tree bark, and began a fierce tapasya to the Devi Bhuvaneshwari, mother of heaven and earth, mother of all creatures and all the gods. Sachi hardly ate except to keep her soul in her body, and chanted the Devi mantra, which the Guru taught her without even sleeping. She offered flowers and incense to the goddess, in the Devi's name. In a few weeks, Nahusha began to ask after Sachi again, but then the Devi appeared one night at the midnight hour to Indra's queen. She came mounted on her swan and serene as eternity. She was absolutely beautiful. Why, she divined beauty, for all beauty flowed from her body. Luminous in 1,000 soft moons, her iridescence was like tender lightning around her, rays of grace filling Sachi's chamber of prayer. The 4 Vedas appeared there, personified, and began to hymn the Devi. She held the noose and goad of retribution in 2 of her hands, and her other 2 hands made the mudras of banishing fear and granting boons. The Vajjayanti of stunning gemstones hung around her throat, down to her very feet. Her smile lit the 3 worlds, and the quality of mercy welled from her like a sea. Peace and grace streamed from her eyes, and she, the mother of all the worlds, high and low, mother of the universe, all the mandalas, subtle and gross, said to Sachi in a voice deep as time, "Tell me what boon you want, Indrani." Sachi knew how rare it is to have a vision of Durga. She knew that one must live thousands of lives before the goddess would appear before one. Sachi fell at the Devi's feet in some ecstasy. "I was married to Indra after great suffering, and I have loved my lord and been faithful to him always. Now he has gone missing, and Nahusha wants me for his bed. Ah, Devi, I yearn to see my husband. My soul longs for him, yet he doesn't come to me, and not even the Devas will tell me where he is." The Devi Bhagavati said gently, "Here is a Duta of mine. He will take you to Mansarava, where your lord hides still. Tell him that it is almost time for Nahusha to lose his throne and for Indra to rule the world again. I promise you this, child. You will have your husband back, and he shall be king of the world once more." At the Devi's words, a shimmering messenger stood, hands folded, before Sachi. The Devi herself vanished like a dream at waking. The Duta stood next to the queen and took her hand, and they flew, quick as wishing, to Mansarava. So said Vedavyasa to the absorbed king, King Janamejaya. Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshwari Mata ki jai, Bole Baba ki jai.